What will ultimately become of Russia? We have been in a period of chaos for 400 years. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in the last century, a general once lamented, in human history, few countries have changed their national anthem 7 times in 300 years like Russia. This vast nation, spanning Eurasia, the largest in the world by land area, has long been caught between its identity as East or West, between its past roots and future path, and so it remains to this day. Its culture is so brilliant, yet its path is so solitary. In this episode of History Painter, we will explore Russia, its incompatibility with the Western world, its scholarly yet expansionist ambitions, and its dazzling literature and art. All of this began in an open land. In 2023, at the Eastern Economic Forum held in Vladivostok, Russia, the host greeted the audience with these words. This was no slip of the tongue, because Russia spans about 1/8 of the Earth's landmass, stretching from Europe to Asia across 11 time zones, when summer night falls in Moscow in the west. Lake Baikal in the east has already greeted the morning. Its eastern terrain is higher, covered in virgin forests, extending to the Pacific coast as plateaus and mountains. Combined with its high latitude, this land, ruled by Arctic winds, is one of the coldest regions in the world, perennially windswept, sparsely inhabited. To the west, the terrain lowers, and vast plains dominate over 60% of Russia's territory, including the world's second and third largest plains. Between them lies the low Ural Mountains, most peaks not exceeding 1,000 meters, yet serving as the boundary between Europe and Asia. North-south rivers became early vital channels connecting distant lands, like the Volga in the north flowing to the Caspian Sea and the Dnieper flowing to the Black Sea, the mother rivers of Russia and Ukraine, respectively. Yes, Russia and Ukraine both emerged from the fertile, temperate East European plain, even sharing the same roots. The East Slavs, a semi-nomadic people who migrated long ago from Eastern Europe. In the 9th century, Viking raiders descended the Dnieper, conquered the East Slavs, and established Russia's first dynasty, with its capital at Kiev, along the middle stretch of the Dnieper. These Vikings, also known as the Rus, gave their name to this dynasty, the Kievan Rus. It was small and primitive, worshipping thunder, wind, and other fearsome natural forces. In 988, to unify beliefs, the Grand Prince of Rus adopted the faith of neighboring Byzantium, Orthodox Christianity, a branch of Christianity, and built churches. Byzantine missionaries, based on Greek, created the Cyrillic script. Left to its own devices, Russia might have grown into a member of Western civilization. But fate placed it at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, giving it only a low boundary, vast plains, but no strong geographical barriers. A great catastrophe was about to strike. Let the grass-covered lands all become my grazing grounds. In the 12th century, Genghis Khan made this bold declaration. He led his armies to unify Mongolia, conquer the Jin dynasty, raid Central Asia, and even push from the southern Russian steppes into Europe. Like an autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves, the Mongols crushed the Rus, destroyed Kiev and many other cities, and ruled Rus for 2.5 centuries. During this time, Rus's ties with the West were severed. While Europe flourished with the Renaissance, the Reformation, and commercial growth, the Rus struggled for survival. Though their religion survived, progress nearly halted, and their former glory faded. Meanwhile, a small northeastern town at the crossroads of rivers and trade routes, Moscow began to rise, gradually becoming a center for nobles and commoners alike, as well as the heart of the Orthodox Church. After the 14th century, Moscow was the geographical and cultural core of Rus. At its center stood a walled fortress. In Russian, the Kremlin. Around it, monasteries and churches multiplied, and Moscow became a holy city. When the Muslim armies of the Ottomans conquered Byzantium's capital, Constantinople, Moscow became the last bastion of orthodoxy. Its rulers saw themselves as the heirs of Byzantium, which claimed Roman descent, and called themselves Caesar, translated as Tsar. They inherited Byzantine architecture, culture, and even the imperial double-headed eagle emblem. In 1480, Russia broke free from Mongol rule. Decades later, it absorbed the fragmented Mongol Khanates, including Kazan. To commemorate this reversal of humiliation, Moscow built a unique church, St. Basil's Cathedral. A new Russian empire had emerged, the shadow of Mongol invasion, instilled in Russia an intense desire to control its borders. Without natural barriers, it would expand its territory, expel enemies, and create barriers. They adopted the Mongols' militarized statecraft. Devoting all resources to war, expansion became the eternal pursuit of successive czars. It is said that during the 43-year reign of the famous Peter the Great, only 13 months were peaceful. They pushed south to conquer the Caucasus Mountains, which remain Russia's highest point today. They reclaimed Siberia to the east and fought for seaports to the west. Through relentless expansion, Russia gained as much as 17.4 million square kilometers of land. The price of power was the blood and tears of millions of serfs. War expenses came mainly from peasants who lost their freedom, bound to the land and traded with it. Another cost of power was an unshakable addiction to alcohol. To generate more tax revenue, taverns were nationalized and drinking was heavily encouraged. High-proof vodka seeped into Russia's veins. The expansion-obsessed czars forgot that though Russia also originated in Europe, its 200-year lag had made it vastly different from the West. In 1695, the undefeated Peter the Fang clashed with the Ottomans for control of the Azov Sea, but failed to break their naval blockade. Change was imminent. Russia, still in its European infancy, turned westward once more. In 1697, a large Russian delegation toured Europe. Among them was a tall, burly young corporal, none other than Tsar Peter the First, traveling incognito after his deep immersion in Europe. Peter the Great built a new city on the empire's western edge, St. Petersburg. It was a city wholly modeled on Europe, with Venetian-style canals, Dutch Baroque architecture, and Roman-inspired piazzas. Peter also established a navy modeled on the Dutch and British, military schools like Sweden's, and adopted Germanic legal systems. He even forced nobles to shave their beards, wear French clothing, and learn European etiquette. French became the language of the elite. A Europeanized Russia had arrived. Early intellectuals were almost all enlightened by Europe. They expanded Russia's scientific frontiers. Lomonosov, who discovered the law of mass conservation, Russian explorers who found Alaska and Antarctica, Mendeleev, who formulated the periodic table, and Pavlov, who discovered conditioned reflexes, all took the historical stage. But Russia had lagged for too long. Its Orthodox faith also diverged sharply. From Europe's dominant Catholicism to Europeans, Russians knew nothing of science or art. They were barbarians who didn't know how to eat cooked beans, chewing them like pigs, shells and all. Faced with Europe, Russians were meek, almost ashamed. Yet by the late 18th century, the bloody French Revolution and Napoleon's invasion of Russia shook Russians' blind worship of Europe. In the Patriotic War, nobles and serfs fought side by side, making noble officers realize serfs were not tools, but compatriots. This shock awakened Russians. The West was not perfect, and serf-ridden Russia was backward. The philosopher Chadayev voiced the confusion of a mad generation. We belong neither to the West nor the East. We are alone in the world. We have given the world nothing. Like cold water hitting a boiling oil pot, this spurred intellectuals to take up a fierce sense of mission. Pondering Russia's fate, a golden age of literature erupted. Pushkin, who wrote of the common people in accessible verse. Gogol, who critiqued serfdom in Dead Souls. Tolstoy, an aristocrat who painted the epic War and Peace against the backdrop of the Napoleonic Wars. And Dostoevsky, Chekhov, and others. Like a frozen river suddenly breaking free, these brilliant stars illuminated Russia's long night. Ideologies clashed violently. Whether leaning west or clinging to Rus traditions, people desperately sought change. In 1887, a young man named Vladimir Ulyanov enrolled in Kazan University's law school and encountered Marxism. History would remember him better by his pen name, Lenin. Russia's new path began to emerge in blood and fire. In 1917, Tsar Nicholas II was forced to abdicate, ending Tsarist autocracy. After the October Revolution, the Bolsheviks established the world's first socialist state, the Soviet Union, USSR. It was an unprecedented path, an unprecedented experiment. The government launched literacy campaigns, centralized industrial development, and the collective strength praised in how the steel was tempered, drove Soviet industry to grow 250%, while capitalist nations suffered the Great Depression. In World War II, the USSR stubbornly resisted Nazi invasion, emerging victorious with vast reparations, advanced technology, and even scientific elites. And let's not forget, this land holds most elements on Mendeleev's periodic table, the world's largest natural gas reserves, diamonds, timber, the second largest coal reserves, eighth largest oil reserves, and 8% of global uranium and 16% of selenium. Thus, in the 20th century, with all these factors combined, the USSR rose as a superpower. In 1949, it became the world's second nuclear power after the US. In 1954, it built the first tokamak nuclear fusion device. In 1957, it launched the first satellite, Sputnik, ushering in the space age. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space. The nation swelled with pride over these scientific feats. Monumental structures celebrating Soviet achievements arose, UFO-like sanatoriums, avant-garde modular buildings, and flame-shaped monuments resembling rocket exhaust. Artists unleashed their imaginations on sci-fi and the future. Russia no longer seemed alone. With Soviet support, socialist states emerged across Eurasia, forming a contiguous socialist bloc and provoking fear in capitalist nations like the US, UK, and France.
An iron curtain has descended across the continent. We must take immediate and resolute action.
Between the US and USSR blocs endured for over 40 years, stood in sharp confrontation, until 1991, when the Soviet Union suddenly collapsed. How could this colossus fall so abruptly? Was it ethnic strife among its 100-plus peoples, radical economic reforms, or Cold War pressures? Students debate, but no consensus exists. Russia reassembled itself, pleading for Western acceptance. Yet the scars of Kiev, the Mongols, and the Soviet era weigh heavily on this giant. The West distrusts it. The East finds it alien. It is a brilliant giant, yet walks a solitary path. Where does its future lie? Is there a third way beyond East and West? A third world? No one knows. Perhaps, as the 2018 World Cup anthem sang, if we fall, we rise again. When there's no answer, we march onward.